Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. I am Monica, I am a nurse, and today I wanted to talk about how to get your college students ready for going to school from a medical perspective. So I have been a nurse for 16 years. I was an ER nurse for most of my career, so I am really a little bit paranoid. I'm that mom who really looks at all angles and wants to make sure that my kids are prepared for emergencies. So that's kind of the perspective that I'm coming from. I have two daughters that are currently at Ole Miss. I have a senior and I have a freshman. I also come from the perspective that with my oldest, we were from Illinois, and so she went out of state for school. She came down here and we were not with her. Now, with my freshman, we actually relocated to Oxford before she started her freshman year. Her dad actually works on campus as a police officer. So we also come from it from a local perspective. So I just want to kind of talk through some things about getting your students ready. And I really think that I may be talking about Ole Miss, but I think this really spans all university and colleges. A lot of them have the same resources on campus as well as off campus, and let's say in their local ER, their physician's offices. These college towns are used to having your students there. So I wanted to talk about things that you could be doing now as you're getting ready for the school year. You can start now. What you could be buying for your student and their dorm room, for their car, if they're going to be bringing a car to campus, and also to, let's say there's some certain situations. Let's say you have a child that may be hunting locally, and that type of thing. I really want to talk about that too, and how you can feel a little bit safer knowing that they have certain items with them when they're doing that. It's something that I make my family do. In Illinois, we have a lake. I have family that does a lot of shooting out at the lake, and I made sure that they have first aid kits there, and I made sure that they're stocked, and I kind of talked to my husband about what I really wanted him to have. I also talked to my husband about what I really think he should have being a police officer. So just kind of some of those things. Also too, you will be coming on campus for orientation, and it's over a few days. And there are times where you'll have some downtime. There's some times where your students will be other students and you are going to be with other parents. Your students are going to be busy. So there are some things that you can do while you're on campus, while you're off campus. Just things that you can do there. I'm going to talk about those. I also want to talk about some safety solutions where maybe you can feel a little bit more comfortable that your kid knows what to do in an emergency. At a college, in a college town, and away from you. So I just want to kind of talk through those things. I think that these things are really important. I think these things are some easy things that you can do that don't cost a lot of money. One of the things that I'm going to be talking about is I actually just went to the dollar store. I went with my daughter, my youngest, Megan, and we went and we actually purchased everything that I thought she might need. Not necessarily for an emergency, but let me tell you, these students get sick. They get allergies, they get respiratory infections, they may get a GI bug, and it's important for them to have some of those medicines, some of those over-the-counter things, just to get them through the night and maybe to get them through their illness. So that's important too. So I'm going to be going over that with you. So I first want to talk about some things that you can do and some conversations that you can start having with your child about medical. So one of the things that all colleges require is that your student is going to need a physical. They're going to need a physical, turn it into the college or university health center. They want to make sure that they have all of their immunizations. make sure that they're seeing that they're doing okay. So one thing that you can do is this is the time for your child to learn how to be an advocate for themselves. It's a time where they need to start making those phone calls for appointments. I have seen in my kids that one of the soft skills that they really don't have is making phone calls. They hate it. They call it adulting, and they don't like it. They don't like having to speak to people on the phone. It's just not something that they kind of grew up doing. So, you know, as a mom, your kids are under 18, you're making their doctor's appointments. When you go to the doctor, you're the one who's answering the questions. It's not your child a lot of the times. So that really needs to start changing. It's a change for your child. It is going to be a change for you. Believe me, I know, I'm a nurse. It's hard. It was hard for me to change too. So what I encourage parents to do is that even if your child is scared to death, even if you have to do it on speakerphone, you're going to be right with them. You could write notes on what might happen during the phone call, what they need to say. So you might write down, okay, you're going to call and you're going to tell them that you're a college student, that you're going away to school, and you need a physical. Okay, they're going to ask you who you want to see. Okay, if you have a certain doctor, make sure they know that so that they can tell the receptionist that, or maybe it doesn't matter who they see. We'll see a nurse practitioner. The soonest you can get them in, the better. And I need to make sure that I tell them that I'm there for a physical, because for physicals, they may allow more time. So offices will schedule patients based on what's going on. They allow more time for certain things. For instance, they might allow more time for a new patient. They're going to allow a little bit more time for physicals, that type of thing, hospital discharges, all that. So you want to make sure they know what your child's going to be coming for. So go ahead, make the appointment, make sure your child's making that appointment. So before you even go to the appointment, it's important to sit down here with your child so that they know what to talk about, so they know what their past information is. So with my youngest, she probably still couldn't tell you what her allergies are. So it's important to write these down. I would encourage you to have them put it maybe in the notes section of their phone. Then they always have it. Also, to have them take a picture of their insurance card, front and back. Then they have that in their phone. And they have their medical information in their phone, because let's say they're really sick down at school and they don't feel good, they're just kind of nervous or not thinking all the things all the way through. They could maybe hand the nurse their phone and say, here's my medical information, or they can be looking at that as a nurse is asking questions so that they can answer those questions. So what you can do is you can prepare your student for this appointment. So you could talk to your student about, okay, so for instance, if I was taking my youngest daughter, I would put in there, okay, Megan, here are your allergies. So put that at the top. That's going to be one of the first things that they're going to say. Okay, so let's go through your medicines. What medicines do you take? And they need to know over the counters. So Megan, you have allergies. So you need to make sure you let them know you take Zyrtec, you take Flonase. That's important information for them to have. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about and write down what medical problems you've had in the past. So for example, I know her medical information, but I really need to let her know this. She's had ear tubes, so I need to make sure she knows what year she had those, how many sets. She's had knee surgery. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about who did the surgery, what they did, and make sure I'm giving her that information to put in her phone. She's also had a closed head injury that she was hospitalized for and had a pretty severe concussion. That's information she needs to know, she needs to have available. So they're going to be putting down this information. You need to make sure also that they know what the college requires. So a lot of colleges nowadays require that they have a meningitis immunization. Okay, we need to make sure, Megan, that you're asking and you're telling them that that's one thing that the school requires. You may want to make sure that they're getting a flu shot. Sometimes that's a little too early, but let's say that your child's starting in the spring semester. You want to make sure that they've had a flu shot. You want to make sure that they have it documented of when they got that. It's pretty important. So you're going to be going over this information with your child and prepping them for the doctor's appointment. Now, your child's 18. Obviously, you're going to be going to the appointment with them just to make sure that they get everything taken care of. You want to make sure that you've printed the college physical form, because they probably have one, and taking that with you. That way it can be filled out and all requirements can be met. So you're going to go with your child to their appointment. This is going to be a hard part for a mom or dad, is to let your student answer the questions. When you get up to the window, have them go up to the receptionist and say who they are and what they're there for. That's a soft skill. They need to know how to do that and do that comfortably. You need to let them fill out the forms on their own. So they have their information in their phone already, right? So they have the information to fill out those forms. They have the forms and they have pictures of their insurance cards that they can fill out the insurance information. You know what? It may take a little bit more time, but it's a learning thing. They need to be learning how to do this. They are going to be having to do this the rest of their adult life. Wouldn't you rather them do it and you can kind of guide them if needed, and kind of seeing and reassuring yourself that they know how to do this and then they're doing it correctly? So even though it's taking more time, allow them to do that. So when you get back to the office, it's also a big temptation to answer for your child. You need to not do that. Make sure they have their phone, they have that note app open so that they can answer questions. And what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of sit back. You're going to let your child know, hey, I'm going to have you answer the questions. Now, are there going to be times a student's going to look at you and be like, I don't know what they're asking me? There may be some questions they don't know the answers to. Then just tell them, just say, if there's a question that you've thought about for a moment and that you really don't know maybe what they're asking, if you don't know what they're asking, tell them. Tell the nurse or the doctor, can you ask me in a different way or explain what you're wanting from me, because I don't know. That's okay. Give them the chance to get that information and to maybe get some clarification. If after that, or maybe it's just something that they don't know or a situation, and they need to say, hey mom, can you tell them what happened back whenever? Because they may not know, and that's okay. Then you can go ahead and answer for them. Another thing is that they need to make sure that they've listed their questions. So let's say they need to know, let's say you have a student who maybe has ADHD and is taking a scheduled medication. Let's say they're taking Adderall. One of the questions they need to ask is, how am I going to get my medicine? I'm going out of state. What have you done for other students that have gone out of state or traveled? We need to figure this out. So that's one thing the student can ask, and they can figure it out. Your student or you, actually, it would be a really good thing if you kind of were taking notes during this time and just having something to do and listening, obviously. That's a question that they need to know. They also need to know, maybe they can ask, what if I catch a GI bug down there? Now, is there something that you can prescribe me that I can have on hand to put in my first aid kit? So for a lot of medical providers, they may say, oh, you know what? I usually give patients Zofran if they're nauseated and sick, but you know what I'm going to do? Just in case, I'm going to go ahead and write you a prescription. Go ahead and get it filled. Then you will have it if you need it. So there's medications like that that they can give you just in case. So, so those are some of the things that you can do. You can make sure that the medical form's completely filled out, that they've signed at the bottom, dated. You'll also need to make sure that you've gotten a complete record of the immunizations, making sure that they're getting caught up on immunizations. A lot of them will want, I think my daughter had to get a second varicella or chickenpox vaccine, and then she had to also get the meningitis vaccine. So those are a couple shots she had to get. So that's what you can be doing for the doctor's appointment. Those are some skills that you can be giving your child, you know, with their physical form, having them fax it to the health center at the school that they're going to be going to, or taking a picture of it and emailing it, that type of thing. So those are some of the things you can be doing now. You also can be having some conversations with your child about what would happen if they got sick. What would you want them to do if they found themselves like in an unsafe situation? How are they going to get a hold of a doctor? Are they going to have a local physician? Will the insurance cover for the local hospital and the local physician? So those are some things you're going to need to figure out and some things you're going to need to do. I really encourage you that if you have a child who maybe has special needs, who have medical issues or chronic illnesses, or even if they're healthy, making a physician's appointment with a physician that you've gotten good references on while you're down in Oxford for orientation, setting up that new patient appointment. Why that's important is because they allow, again, for more time for new patients. So you can get your students' new patient appointment out of the way while you're at orientation. Again, this is giving them another time that they can get used to, let's say they're driving, having them drive from campus to the doctor's office. You know, having them talk to the physician or the nurse practitioner or whoever they're seeing. With them having established care with this physician, it will be easier for them to get care and faster if they get sick. So let's say they get a really bad respiratory infection, or maybe their allergies are just out of control. And you know, Zyrtec and Flonase just isn't doing them for them right now. So what they can do is they can go ahead and make physician appointments, and they're already established with that physician, and they can get in pretty quickly. A lot of doctor's offices are used to taking care of college students, so they're kind of used to that. Another thing too, I would encourage parents, if your child is taking a scheduled medication, for instance, like Adderall or something for ADHD, anxiety, any depression medicine or something like that, that maybe the prescriptions do not cross state lines. You want to make sure that you are finding a way to get your child their medicine. So you can do this one of a few ways. You can do this by, let's say your home physician is going to go ahead and write the prescriptions out, and maybe you're going to be coming down for football games or coming down for parents' weekend. So hey, you're going to be there for 4 weeks before we come down. So we will get your medicine right before we leave. As we're rolling out of town, we will get your medication filled at our local pharmacy, and we'll bring it with us. And by Christmas break, you'll be back into town, and we can just get it at a local pharmacy. That's one way to do it. But let's say you live across the country, and that's just not a possibility. With the local physician, you will have to figure out how they're going to be prescribing those medications. So for my oldest, we did have her see a local physician so that they could prescribe her ADHD medicine. And that physician actually wanted them to have a diagnosis, an official diagnosis of ADHD. Well, she had always gone to her pediatrician. Her pediatrician was well versed in, with ADHD and taking care of kids and medicating and that type of thing. So we never went to a psychiatrist to get the official diagnosis. And that's something that the local physician required. So we got stuck where we had to make an appointment with a local psychiatrist. She had to go through all of the testing down here so that she could get her official diagnosis. And that was something that she had to do on her own. She's over 18. That reminds me, before they leave town with their local physician, you need to make sure that they've listed you as a contact, that you can get information, that you can make appointments, that you can talk about medicines. You also need to get that for the physician that they'll be seeing at their college or university, that they have filled out that form, that you are allowed to get information from their doctor's office regarding medications, regarding visits. Let's say your student just doesn't understand what the physician is expecting them to do once they leave their discharge instructions. It's important for that form to be filled out so that the office can give you that information. So let's say they're over 18, they have had an emergency. A lot of times, the emergency rooms take this into account, that it is an emergency situation, and they will talk to mom and dad. So that usually is not a problem. Let's say your child, God forbid, they would need emergency surgery and they can't sign for themselves. You will be the next person in line and you would be able to sign for them. You would be able to give verbal consent over the phone if for some reason you couldn't get down here right away. So I don't want you to kind of worry about that. There are things in place to take care of those types of situations. Okay, so let's talk about things that you can be doing during orientation. And we've already talked about seeing a local physician. Another thing I think is really, really important is to know where the services are on campus. So what I mean by that is if they might need to see the health center, maybe that they already know what dorm they're going to be living in. So my daughter lives in Minor. It would be a good idea for us to actually go from Minor and walk and find the health center. So that way she knows where it is on campus. They also need to know where the police station is. I think this is a really important thing. So maybe walking from their dorm and finding the police station. Another thing is finding like emergency push buttons and kind of seeing where those are at on campus. That way, in case anything happened, they would know how to get emergency responses. So just doing that. Another thing that they could do is that they could meet some of the police officers. There will be police officers who will be talking to them during orientation in like a panel situation and just talking to them about maybe if they're getting pulled over, what to expect from the police on campus. So it's really important, I think, to meet them. What they did is during one of the parent sessions, they had all of the departments kind of around the room so you could go to what apartments you needed to see. So they had a dining plan office. A lot of people had questions about that. So they had a station put up. An officer also had a station put up. The health center had a station put up. So just going to them and meeting them. And I think that's really important. Let's say you have a student with special needs. It's important that if there's anything that the police would need to know about your student, that you let them know. I'm sure they want to know. They want to make sure that they're caring and looking out for your student. So just giving them that information. Also, too, it's important going on the square, especially if you're be going to Ole Miss, or actually, there's probably a lot of colleges that have a square or have places that the students go to drink or to have fun, you know, on the squares where a lot of the students go to the bars. So one of the things that Oxford Police Department has set up is that they have a tent. And at the tent, students can go to wait for Ubers. They can go if they're feeling uncomfortable. They can go if they're not feeling safe. So you really need to know maybe where their tent is set up. So you could do that. You could go to the Oxford Police Station and just ask and just say, hey, I understand you have a tent where the kids are at when they're on the square. Could you just let me know and maybe point that out on a map so that I can show my student where you guys will be set up? Also, too, the Oxford Police Department's really good. They actually have a Twitter set up. So when they're opening their tent on the weekends, they will actually post pictures of what the tent looks like and them at the tent. Also, too, the Oxford Police Department has a mounted police force. So what that means is they have horses that will be going around downtown and that type of thing. The students love to take pictures with them and kind of talk to the police officers who are on the horses. So that's something you can kind of talk to your students about. And this is specific to Ole Miss and Oxford. I'm really not sure how it works on other campuses, but there are two different police departments that your student might engage with when they are here. So the first one is the Ole Miss Police Department. These, the police officers are actually certified. They go to the police academy. They're just like any other police department. They'll be patrolling, around campus. They really concentrate and they like to make sure that they're educating the students versus like, let's enforce, that type of thing. So for instance, your child may get pulled over by the police if they're doing 58 and an 18. They may get pulled over if they're just blowing stop signs because there is so much pedestrian traffic on campus and it is very dangerous. So, I just want to let you know that they may be engaged by the Ole Miss Police Department, and they are actually on campus. So, a lot of times if they're doing traffic stops, and this is something you may want to talk to your child about before they go away, is that what would you do if you got pulled over? Let's say one of your kids are just absolutely a speedster. They probably need to know what to do in a traffic stop and how to act appropriately and safely. So that's something that you can do. Let's say you have a student who is deaf or hard of hearing. That would be something you would want to talk to them about. How would you engage with the police departments? Maybe there's something that you can do during orientation is you could take your student to the police department and just let them know about the expectations. Okay, my son or my daughter is deaf or hard of hearing, and when they get pulled over, this is what we've taught them. This is what is expected when you're dealing with somebody in the deaf community. That's important information to know. And I think a lot of the police officers would love to have that information. So just kind of take that into consideration too. The second police department that they may be dealing with is actually the Oxford Police Department. So they are dealing with anything off campus within the city limits. So they are at a different police station. They are the ones who would do the tent on the square. That's kind of if you would be dealing with if for some reason your student had an accident off campus. So just know that there are two different police departments, and this may be the other case at other universities. This is something that I would probably clarify when you go to orientation and just ask. Okay, so now I want to talk about some things you may want to prepare and what you may want to buy your students. So like I said, I have been in most of my career an ER nurse. I'm very paranoid. And one thing I like to buy is first aid kits. I made sure both of my girls had first aid kits for their dorm rooms. It had all of the things that I thought they may need, any over-the-counter medicines, just anything that I think they might need. I also like to get first aid kits for people maybe who are buying their first home, maybe people who are building a home. I have had a situation before where I've had a friend whose house got hit by a tornado, and they were going to be doing repairs and they were going to be clearing debris off of their property. I actually bought them a pretty heavy duty first aid kit, bought some like yellow t-shirts so that they could be seen pretty easily. And also too, for baby showers and wedding showers. So for baby showers, I like to get moms kind of like a first aid kit for their babies. So that might include like nasal saline drops, you know, butt paste, Tylenol, nasal suctioning, thermometers, that type of thing. So that's just something I like to do. You know, I'm a nurse. I'm an ER nurse. What can I say? So what I'd like to show you is the kit that I actually got my daughter. We actually went and got this the other day. We went to the local Oxford Dollar Tree and we were able to get the container and everything that is in the container for $15. So that's something you may want to do for your student. And I'm going to talk through some of the things that I was able to get her. Okay. So first things first is the container. They may have medical information on their phones, but you know what? A really great place is on the lid. I would make a listing of everything that is included in the kit, what to use it for, and just maybe the dosages. So you may want to let them know, okay, acetaminophen, in parentheses, Tylenol, you would want to take 1 to 2, and you could take those every 4 to 6 hours. And what you could take it for, so you can take it for headaches, stomach aches, those type of things, if you have a fever. So just listing that information here. It's good to have that listed here in addition to their phone, because maybe their roommate would be able to use this too, and making sure the roommate knew that they had this available to them, and making sure that they know where they're going to be keeping it. Like maybe keep it under the sink where they both have access to it. That's probably a good place, or maybe up in one of the closets would be a good place for them to keep it. Okay, so some of the things that I got her in her first aid kit. So one of the first things I got was I got Band-Aids. You know, if they get hurt, girls who are going to be going out and wearing heels, or maybe your daughter's going to be going through rush, they're going to get blisters. So getting them Band-Aids to help them with that. I actually didn't find at the dollar store the blister Band-Aids that I like to get my daughters. I get those at Walmart, and I made sure that my daughter was stocked up on those for rush, because they're wearing heels and wedges and that type of thing and going from house to house. So that was one thing. Also, for football games, the girls love dress up at Ole Miss. So they're going to be wearing heels and wedges with dresses and that type of thing. So it's a great thing for them to have. All right, another thing I got and was able to find was this kind of first aid kit. It was $1. So it just has some different type of Band-Aids. It has knuckle Band-Aids. It even has some alcohol swabs in there and some gauze pads. So that was another thing that I got for them that they can keep in their room. So I also got them 2 types of cream. So I got hydrocortisone cream if they're getting a rash or getting eczema, or you know, a localized dermatitis or rash. Another heads up, my daughter, we've been coming to Oxford for years, And every time we would come down, her allergies would get under control. She would start getting the red eyes, getting the rash, her face would be red. So make sure that if your student gets allergies, they are going to be exposed to different allergens when they come down to school. It may be more because obviously the weather isn't going to be changing as severe from winter to summer to fall, those type of things. So just making sure they have Zyrtec and Flonase on hand if that's something that they use when they have allergies, maybe starting that like a few weeks before they come down if that may be a situation they may be dealing with. So I got hydrocortisone cream for rashes. I also got the triple antibiotic and Neosporin if they would get any cuts, blisters, anything like that. So I got this so that they would have that. Again, this is something you're going to want to list on the lid, and you're going to want to differentiate what the uses are for each of those medicines. They may not know. All right, I also got emergency. It's very important. Your kids are going to get sick. They're going to have these respiratory infections that run rampant through the dorms. It's just what happens when you put a bunch of students together in a dorm, in a community living center. And they get tired, and they get run down, and they get stressed. So they can kind of start with a little bit of a vitamin C. I also put hand sanitizer. Very, very important. I actually got my daughter a few of these. I got one to put in her first aid kit, but also one to put in her backpack that she can have that if she's going to the dining hall or to classes where she's sitting with a bunch of kids who are sick, who are like touching the desk and door handles and that type of thing. Just, she uses a lot. All right. I also got some cough drops. This is going to be really important for your students to have. They're going to have sore throats. And like I said, when it's infections and viruses start going around, it's important to have. There's not a lot in here. There's only 14, but guess what? It'll get them through the night or maybe for a couple of days. So also a thermometer. When my kids call me and tell me they're sick or tell me they're not feeling good and they feel like they have a fever, I want them to be able to take their temperature and let me know what it is. So I got a thermometer for them. All right, so as far as over-the-counter medicines, anti-diarrheal, they may get diarrhea. They need to know how to treat it and need to know that they have something. So I got them that. I also got, I love Mucinex for coughs, so I got them some of that too for that. Important to have. I also got some Tylenol, and I got some ibuprofen for them to have in case they have fevers, in case maybe they have a headache, they're not feeling good. Making sure they have those on hand. That's really, really important. I also got Benadryl, and actually there's 36 tablets on this, and that was for $1. So that was probably, that seems like a pretty good deal. So your kids may want this if they're having allergies. Also too, if you have a student with severe allergies, peanut allergies, that type of thing, having these available. Also letting know that if your roommate, let's say my daughter had severe peanut allergies, I would make sure the roommate knew that. I would make sure that the roommate knew where the EpiPen is and how to use it, and I would make sure she knew where the Benadryl is. So I got Benadryl. Another thing I got important is I got some sinus congestion and pain relief for those colds that they inevitably get. They just do. It's just a fact. You can ask any mom of a student who's gone to college. They get these colds. All right, and the last thing I got was just Tums. So I got some Tums because your kiddo may have indigestion if they're stressed. They're going to be eating a lot of different foods, so they may be eating a lot more fast food. They're going to be eating a lot more unhealthy food, so just having this on hand to maybe just to get them through the night if they have some heartburn. So those are some of the things that I got my daughter for her dorm room. Again, I was able to go to the Dollar Tree. I was able to get all of this for $15. So she'll keep this you know, under her sink, making sure that her roommate knows what's in here too. And you know what? They can share it. It's not that expensive to restock it. You know, when you're coming down for Parents Weekend, kind of check it out and ask them where the first aid kit is and restock as needed. It's really something easy to do. Another first aid kit that I like to make sure that my student has is a first aid kit for the car. So one of the first aid kits that I got for the car is, I have this in my car. So it's just a first aid kit that I actually got from Walgreens. I know everything is backwards on here, and I'm not the best at YouTube yet, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get that changed. But anyway, so this first aid kit actually is a pretty neat first aid kit. So it has a lot of stuff in it. But it's actually locked, so I'm not going to be opening it. But it actually has on the box exactly what you're going to use for what. So on this box, and I don't know if you can read it, it talks about what if you get a wound and you just need to treat and cover it. You're going to use these. What if you need some scissors or some medications? It does have all that stuff in here. And then in addition, it has these cards in there. So these cards talk about what if you need to clean a wound, you know, just some different things that may happen to them or to somebody that's in their vehicle that they need to know how to treat. So that talks about that. Actually, one of the cards shows them elevating a hand. And so that just gives them some information. So this is something that I like to have in our cars. So all of our cars have these, and so that's something you can get at Walgreens. I think I got it for less than $20. I'll link below. You know, I'll look for something on Amazon and kind of link that below. We use Amazon a lot. So anyway, another thing I really want to talk about is gun safety and safety if your child is going to be hunting. There's a lot of hunting done down here in Mississippi. They may run into a friend that hunts and may be doing that for the first time, or maybe they do it all the time, but they're not doing it locally where you live. So I think it's really important for them to have a first aid kit. So, and what to do in an emergency. So I do not like to shoot guns. They terrify me. I was an ER nurse. I was actually a trauma nurse for a few years, and so I treated a lot of gunshot wounds. Guns terrify me. I have shot a gun and absolutely hated it, and I haven't done it since. But my husband is in a job where he's got to have guns around, and he uses, you know, he hasn't used his gun, but he does go to the gun range and practice, and is there with other people who are also practicing, and he actually likes to hunt. And my girls actually, they don't do so much hunting, but they do like to go shooting. They do like to go to the gun range. So I want to make sure that my family has what they need for an emergency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link down below some of the things that we've bought in the past to make sure that I know they have what they need on hand. And a few of these things are for gunshot wounds, or something that you would have, and this is really sick to talk about. I sincerely apologize, but I think it's so important. Let's say there's a mass bleeding. Somebody has a wound. Maybe they fell and a stick went into their leg and broke their leg, and they have this huge wound that's bleeding. They need to know how to get that controlled, to stop it, and to save their lives. So two things that we've gotten to include in addition to our other first aid kit items is making sure that they have a field tourniquet. This is something you can put above the wound and really crank it up to make sure that they're not going to bleed out. It's important for them to have. It's important for them to know how to use. My husband carries that with him when he's on duty. Another thing that is very important for them to have is they now have, it's basically a clotting agent that you would put on a wound. So let's say somebody got shot. You could put this declotting powder on them and this bandage, and it would actually clot that wound up and stop the bleeding for enough time that they can get emergency medical attention by a professional or get them to the ER. So that's something that is very, very important for, I think, to have while you're hunting and at the gun range. So those are just a few things that I would encourage you. It doesn't hurt having, they're not that expensive. And so if you have a family member who hunts, or if you have land where people do, shooting and practice and that type of thing, I really encourage you to get a first aid kit. Whether you put it in a weatherproof backpack and you put it somewhere out at your lake, on your land, making sure that if you have a shed out there or in their deer stand or wherever they're hunting, that they have this, and that they make sure too that everybody who's hunting with them knows where the first aid emergency kit is and what's in it and what to do with it. I think it's a pretty important information to have. So those are just some things that I wanted to share with you as far as being a college mom and being a nurse and having worked in emergency medicine, some things that you can do to help prepare your college student to go to college. And you can also use this if you have a young adult who maybe isn't going to college but is maybe moving away, making sure they have this information. They need to have this information to navigate the healthcare system, to navigate emergencies, to navigate working with police departments and getting pulled over and that type of thing safely. And so they just need to know this information. So I just wanted to share that with you. I will comment below in the description some of the things that I've gotten off of Amazon, some safety items, that type of thing. So check that out if that's something you're interested in. Make sure you're commenting below and asking any questions, and make sure you subscribe. I'm going to do more videos on college halls and what orientation day is like, what move-in day is like, as somebody from out of town and somebody who's local, who we just had to move her from just a couple miles away. So be looking out for those. All right, take care. See ya. Have a great day. Bye.